wave energy is such a big source, according to the World Energy Council, it can produce twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now. Yet, like, there's kind of a feeling of a race in the world. Who's the company that is going to develop a commercial wave farm first? Because that's something that has never been successfully achieved.
Welcome to Pick Up Here's Future of the Industry series. This is where we discuss innovation, technology, sustainability, and travel. We host industry leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and experts of the maritime industry from all around the world. Pick Up Here provides technological and sustainable solutions to optimize marine operations and to make the sailing experience for boaters easier and more accessible. I am your host, Shlomi Singer. Be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel for more exciting interviews and updates. Today we are hosting Ina Braverman, co-founder and CEO of Echo Wave Power. I was reading up a lot about you, and I saw an interview recently published. And at 24, you created Eco Wave Power, right? And
yes.
We're about the same age. I'm 34, and I feel like such a loser right now when I talk to you. And I'm like, oh, what did I do with my life?
I'm sure you did a lot. We don't know each other personally, so I can't tell you the good things you did, but I'm sure you made a lot of good things as well.
So,
and yeah.
Well, where did the idea come from?
So basically, the passion came. Let's start where the passion came from. The passion came from. I'm Israeli. I live in Israel, but I was not born here. I was born in Ukraine in 1986. And 2 weeks after I was born, the Chernobyl nuclear reactor exploded, which was the worst in history nuclear disaster. And I was in a small town that was not very far from the nuclear reactor. And I actually, due to the pollution in the air and the negative effects of the explosion, I actually had a respiratory arrest and a clinical death.
Wow.
And luckily, my mother, that is a nurse, she gave me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on time, and she saved my life. If she would approach my crib, a few minutes later, that's it, there's no baby. I wouldn't be alive right now. And, as a baby, I don't remember the story, of course. I heard it from my mother and father as I was growing up, but growing with such background story and knowing that you got a second chance in life and your first chance was taken by a polluting, or maybe not polluting, a dangerous way of harnessing electricity or producing electricity, it makes something special. You want to make a change, you want to do something special with your life, you feel like you're here for a mission, because like you got a second chance, not everybody does. So that's kind of the passion around the subject.
Well, so it's pretty much from 2 weeks after you were born, you have this passion, this desire to make a difference and to make a change in the world.
No, as a baby, you usually don't. Listen, as a child and growing up, I didn't really know what I want to do. I studied in the university political science. I thought that maybe I can change the world through politics.
Same here. I also studied political science in my bachelor's.
Yeah. So I thought maybe, I can change things and represent people and do good things. So obviously I didn't, as a baby, wake up one day and said, let's do renewable energy. But it's something that evolved with time.
So where did the idea come from for Eco Wave Power? Where did
the idea is a joint idea of science. The idea is a joint idea of myself and my business partner and the co-founder of Eco Wave Power. His name is David Leb. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has different patents, and he successfully invested and exited a number of businesses. And one of the investment he made is a surf camp in Panama. And while being there during renovations and seeing the power of the waves, he started thinking like, okay, there must be something better that can be done with the waves other than surfing. For me, I got exposed to renewable energy through a company that I worked in the past, where I found out that there is solar energy, there is wind energy, there is different types of renewable energy. And wave energy is such a big source. According to the World Energy Council, it can produce twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now. Yet, like, there's kind of a feeling of a race in the world. Who's the company that is going to develop a commercial wave farm first? Because that's something that has never been successfully achieved. So for me, that kind of for me and for David, I think what attracted us to the field is that we saw that there's a very high demand, but almost no viable supply. So that's kind of our meeting together, which was also by accident, was kind of the beginning of EcoWave Power.
That sounds so inspiring. Amazing. So how many countries are you currently active in?
What? Sorry?
How many countries do you currently operate in?
So right now, we operate in about 6 countries. We have a subsidiary in Australia, China, Gibraltar, Mexico, Israel, and Sweden. We have working power stations in Israel and in the Gibraltar. Recently, a few weeks ago, we announced that we just signed a new concession agreement for an up to 20 megawatt project in Portugal.
Wow.
So this is something that we're very excited about.
So I was also looking at on your website, there was a list of future projects. So do you feel that right now with the current crisis, there will be more opportunities, or do you feel that there's less opportunities?
Listen, it's a little bit of both. It's unclear at the moment. On the one hand, right now, when many countries, luckily Israel is exiting the crisis, but many countries are still in the peak of the crisis. So our business is mostly a B2G business, business to governments. And most governments are busy with dealing with the crisis and not so much with building renewable energy power stations. So in that situation, what's happening with the coronavirus is not so good, of course, because the governments don't have the capacity in order to handle new subjects. On the other hand, I think that the positive thing that happened with the coronavirus outbreak is that we suddenly started seeing clear skies in China and clean water in Venice. And suddenly, because the airplane stops and the traffic stopped and many of the factories closed, we saw different special natural phenomena everywhere in the world, and animals started walking in the street again without being afraid. So I think that even when we hop back into polluting cars and the airplanes and so on, I think people, governments will still remember how nice it was to wake up in the morning, go to your porch or outside and take a breath of fresh air, and not breathe the pollution from the traffic. So I do think that in the longer run, it will create a positive boost towards the renewable energy sector.
I really hope so as well, because it's really, for me, walking outside and seeing nature and how it looks like everything is going great without human interference. You know what I mean? So
yep, going better than ever.
yeah. Animals that they were believed to be extinct, I think appeared to be in Canada. There was an announcement about that, and I think it's been really fascinating to see how nature reacts without human interaction.
And I think it really showed that we are guests on the planet and not the other way around. Like kind of, the planet, something can happen and the whole humankind can vanish, and nature will continue going even without the interfering of us humans. So maybe that's also meant to be, a lesson for us, how to treat the planet.
I agree. I agree completely. So you mentioned previously about governments and how they are trying to reassess and assess what's currently important for them. Now, how can we get governments to support initiatives like EcoWave Power and other sustainable, let's call them green and blue initiatives? How can we promote this to be on the top of their agenda?
So I think that climate change is, at least in the recent years, is on the agenda all the time. So you see governments and countries promising and setting policies and trying to stop global warming and climate change and so on. I think the main difficulty is to get it from the promises level to actual implementation level. And it's not because there is no desire. I'm sure that the government also wants better world for their wives and children and families and so on. But it's actually setting the policy, setting the legal framework, setting the supportive feed-in tariff for new types of renewable energy and so on. This is something that takes time. I always say that for EcoWave Power to build a power plant, is much faster than to get the licensing for the power plant. That's something that shouldn't be. Like, it doesn't make sense that you would be constructing 1 year and working on the licenses for 4. Like,
well, I didn't
that
realize
causes a lot of, it causes a lot of kind of a lot of delays, a lot of uncertainties, because again, especially being a new type of renewable energy, many countries do not have the proper policies in place, so they set it as they go, and it takes time. And I think this is something that maybe governments and governmental organizations and even cities and municipalities need to do in a more proper manner.
So how can they do that, or how can we empower them to do that? How can we give them more, let's call it, the word that popped into my head was accessibility. So how can we empower them?
I think to probably devote a special department, a special contact people, special dedicated contact people that can like the only thing on their agenda is doing that, and then there's no falling in between the chairs and nothing is like unclear. To set a clear pathway and have a department that makes sure that this pathway is being actually executed. I think that's the best way, because right now, it's very difficult to be a new type of technology in a market that does not have any legislation or framework for that type of technology.
That seems like it's a bit of a challenge, but as you mentioned, there are a lot of governments, a lot of people are saying, we need to promote these things, especially right now when, you mentioned how people in China are finally seeing stars at night. And people are becoming more aware of the importance of the maintaining the beauty of the world. So I think it's definitely something that organizations and companies like ourselves should make an initiative to do something together and to help make things more accessible, information more accessible to governments and to policymakers in different countries.
Yep, definitely.
So I was gonna ask you about that, but how can we make your solutions similar to EcoWave Power more accessible to the public, and not just for governments? We were talking about getting what we were talking about was more of a top-down approach. So we have the governments that make a decision, and then they tell it to the people what's going to be. But how can I know that a lot of individuals want to do things from the ground up, grassroots projects. How can we empower them to promote and start raising awareness internally?
So one example of that is something new that we're actually doing. We didn't announce it yet, but I can tell you that we are setting a program in EcoWave Power that basically we identified one of the main challenges for cities and ports, which is more the hands-on authorities, let's say. Their main problem is that many times they don't know how much wave power can they harness in their port or in their city, what's their wave height, what's their wave period. They're missing a lot of data in order to be able to assess the positive impacts of a wave energy project. So we're setting up actually a program in EcoWave Power with funding dedicated for that. We will be making sort of a competition that any city or port around the world can apply. We will choose 5 to 10 of the best locations, and then provide them with all this information for free of charge. So basically, it's a whole year of work of making a detailed analysis, and they'll get information: what's their wave height, what's the wave period, how suitable is their structure, since we attach to marine structures, and how much energy can they harness for their population. And I think and believe that such move, for example, will create more understanding towards the sector, and maybe even prioritization of wave energy in certain cities that have significant potential for that source.
This sounds like an amazing initiative.
Thank you. You're the first one to hear about it.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and I think it'll give us a lot of incentives for different for different individuals to to start something on start like a career, kind of a new career path for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So for someone who's watching this and he wants to get involved, we're speaking of careers, and he wants to start a career in a sustainable company, company that's providing a positive impact on the world. Where do you recommend that they start? Should they start their own company like you did at 24, or should they, build something, start from the bottom someplace and kind of gain experience? What do you feel would be the best way?
I don't think there's a certain rule or set of rules or structure for being involved in renewable energy. Some people they can contribute as employees. For example, our engineers are doing an amazing job. EcoWave Power wouldn't be the same without them. Same for our sales team and marketing team and so on. So they're a big part of our story. Some people, they're more like maybe prone to opening their own business, or more entrepreneurial, and these people can open businesses. Some people can contribute even in smaller ways, like throwing the plastic bottles in the right can. That's also a bit of contribution for making a better world. So I think each one should do the maximum that they can do. There's no rules, there's no obligations. It's just a joint mission of taking care of our world.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been very, very beneficial for me. I've learned a lot about both your background and about what you guys are doing, and then your future plans. Everything seems really exciting. So I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.